All right, after Tuesday's sports wagering action, we improved to 5-0 in our last 5 board member tier package bets on brockpage.com. And the link for today's board member tier package bet is in the description section below. $1,000 bettors are up over $4,500 during that span. Now, the board member tier is an all-inclusive package that I offer on my website. Not only do you get access to my board member tier package bet itself, you also get access to every single bet that I give out on that webpage all the way through the end of February. Now, if you're not signed up for that package, or if you have no idea what I'm talking about, I'm going to explain a little bit more about it in just a moment. But before we go ahead and move on, just want to take a quick timeout and welcome you to the video. My name is Brock Page, and I do sports picks for free right here on YouTube. I also sell my personal bets on brockpage.com. And I have packages on that website starting at just $1.99. Now, the purpose of these YouTube videos is to provide you with free informational sports betting content. It's also designed to generate interest in signing up for a membership on my website. Now, you may be wondering what the difference is between what I do here on YouTube and what I do on my webpage. Well, what I do here on YouTube is I'll handicap the entire slate of games in any given sports side in total, or at least most of those games. And then what I do on my website is, well, I actually share with you which one of these free YouTube picks on my channel that I'm actually betting on personally. And with that, guys, let's go ahead and dive into some college basketball action. We're going to start off in the Big Ten, and that's going to be Maryland taking on Indiana. 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off on Thursday, February 24th, 2022. Indiana's -6.5 with the total at 134. Now, the Hoosiers have been really tough to score against at Assembly Hall. Indiana's allowing only 60 points a game at home. And they're also in the top 10 in the country in home defensive field goal percentage. Now, scoring-wise, on the other end of the court, Trace Jackson-Davis, he's averaging over 17.5 points per contest, along with 8 rebounds and a couple assists. Meanwhile, Race Thompson scoring nearly a dozen points a game himself, along with 7 rebounds. Now, the Hoosiers won 13 of 16 at home, and they covered the number in nearly 70% of those ball games. So not only these guys getting the job done in the real world at home, they're also cashing in a lot of tickets for their backers. Now, they're taking on a Maryland team who lost 5 out of their last 7 themselves. And they also have a losing record on the road. Now, the Terps are also allowing a few too many points on the road this year. They're giving up 75 points a game when traveling. And they're also amongst the worst in the Big Ten in defensive rebounding on the road. Now, total-wise, 5 out of Maryland's last 8 road games got over the posted number. They're also 7-3 to the under in their last 10 meetings with the Hoosiers. Meanwhile, Indiana, on the other side, they saw unders recently with the likes of Northwestern, Illinois, and Maryland. I'm going to lean toward Indiana -6.5 and the under 134. Next contest, it is going to be Arizona State versus Colorado. And that's going to be a 9 o'clock Eastern start time. Colorado's -6 with the total at 134. Now, the Buffs have played some pretty good defense at home this year. They're allowing only 66 points per contest, and they're limiting their competition to just 40% shooting from the field. Evan Batty's drilling an absurd 51% of his three-pointers. He's also scoring 11 points a game. Meanwhile, Jabari Walker, he's scoring 14.5 points a game himself, along with 9 boards. Now, Colorado's won 11 of 15 as the home team this year. They're taking on an Arizona State team who's winning only 30% of their contests when traveling. They're also amongst the worst scoring teams in the Pac-12. Matter of fact, the Sun Devils are averaging only 60 points a game away from their home court. They're also shooting just 27% from three-land in that same category. Not only are these guys not scoring points, they're not even a threat, shooting the long ball. Now, total-wise, Arizona State 70% to the under on the road this year, 18-8 to the under at any location. Meanwhile, Colorado saw unders recently with Stanford, Oregon, and Washington State. I'm going to lean toward Colorado -6 in the under 134. Next matchup, it is going to be Belmont versus Murray State, and that's going to be a 9 o'clock Eastern start time. Murray State's -3 with a total at 144.5. Now, the Murray State Racers have played some of the toughest defense in the country. They're actually in the top 25 in fewest points allowed per contest, and they're limiting their opponents to just 39% shooting from the field at home. Now, scoring-wise, KJ Williams is averaging over 17.5 points a game, along with 8 rebounds. Meanwhile, Tevin Brown, he's draining just about 40% of his three-pointers, and also averages 16.5 points a game. Now, Murray State's in the top 15 in home offensive field goal percentage. That's top 15 in the entire nation. They're also scoring nearly 87 points a game at home, so these guys are really prolific offensively in front of their home crowd. They're taking on a Belmont team who gives up 72 points a game on the road, and they haven't covered a point spread since February 3rd. And as a matter of fact, the Bruins went 0-7 against the spread in their last 7 straight, and they're scoring only 69 points a game in their last 10 meetings with Murray State. So if you're into historical trends, you certainly want to think about that one there. Belmont, not scoring a whole lot of points in these head-to-head matchups with the Racers. Now, total-wise, Belmont saw overs recently with Eastern Illinois, Tennessee Tech, and Tennessee State. Meanwhile, Murray State went 7-5 to the over in their last dozen at home. I'm going to lean toward Murray State -3 in the over 144.5. Next contest, it is going to be Gonzaga versus San Francisco, 9 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Gonzaga's -8.5, totals 157. Now, the Zags have won their last 16 straight, and they actually haven't lost a game since December 4th of last year. The Bulldogs are averaging 93 points a game on the road, and they're making 55% of their field goals when traveling. Just an absolute, man among boys in that West Coast Conference. Needless to say, Gonzaga is leading the entire country in both of those stats I just mentioned, scoring and offensive field goal percentage when traveling. Now, when it comes to offensive production in this one, Drew Timmy's averaging 18 points a game along with 6 rebounds and 2.5 assists. Meanwhile, Chet Holmgren shooting 45% from three-land himself. He's also averaging 14 points a game. Now, when it comes to rebounding the basketball, Gonzaga leads the nation in offensive boards away from home. They're taking on a San Francisco team who failed to cover in 5 out of their last 9. And they're also covering in just 40% of their home games. Now, when it comes to head-to-head meetings between these two schools, San Francisco allowed 86 points per game in their last 10 meetings with Gonzaga. When it comes to the total in this one, San Fran's 10-5 to the over in their last 15 at home. They're also 70% to the over in their last 10 meetings with the Zags. Now, the Bulldogs, on the other side of things, they saw overs recently with San Diego and Portland. I'm going to lean toward Gonzaga -8.5 in the over 157. Next contest, it is going to be Ohio State versus Illinois, 9 p.m. Eastern tip-off. Illinois' -5.5, totals 140. The Illini scoring 79 points a game at home. And they're in the top 25 in the country in offensive rebounding. Kofi Coburn's averaging over 11 rebounds a game, and they're also scoring 21 points per contest. Meanwhile, Alfonso Plummer is making nearly 40% of his three-pointers. He's also averaging over 14.5 points a game. Now, when it comes to defensive play, Illinois is limiting their competition to just 38% shooting from the field. They're taking on an Ohio State team who has a losing record on the road. They're allowing nearly 71 points a game when they travel. Now, the Buckeyes also suffered losses recently to the likes of Iowa, Rutgers, and Purdue. And when it comes to the total in this one, Ohio State went 6-3 to the over in their road games this year. They're also 60% to the over in their last 10 contests with Illinois. Meanwhile, the Illini saw 8 out of their last 13 at the State Farm Center get over the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward Illinois -5.5 in the over 140. Next contest, UCLA versus Oregon, 9:30 p.m. East. UCLA is -4 on the road, totals 138. But despite being favored by a couple of buckets away from home here, the Bruins really haven't been all that great offensively when traveling. They're scoring just 69 points a game on the road this year, and they're making only 40% of their field goals in that same category. They're taking on an Oregon team who plays some really tough defense in the Knight Arena. Now, the Ducks allow only 66 points a game at home, and they're limiting their competition to just 31% shooting from three land in that same category. Now, scoring-wise, Will Richardson's drilling over 41% of his shots from downtown. The guard is also averaging over 15 points per contest. Meanwhile, Jacob Young scoring 11 points a game himself, along with a couple of boards. Oregon's won 11 of 15 at the Knight Arena this season. Very good at home. When it comes to the total in this one, Oregon's 60% to the over in their own building. They're also 8-2 to the over in their last 10 meetings with UCLA. Meanwhile, the Bruins, on the other side of things, they saw overs recently against Washington State, Stanford, and Cal. I'm going to lean toward Oregon +4 in the over 138. Next matchup, it is going to be Arizona versus Utah, 11 o'clock East. Arizona's -11.5, totals 150. But as good as Arizona's been, well, this is a pretty dicey number for these guys being on the road. Pretty big number here. The Wildcats failed to cover in their last 2 straight, and they're also just 3-6 against the spread in their last 9. Now, when it comes to head-to-head meetings between these two schools, the Wildcats allowed 72 points per contest in their last 10 meetings with Utah, and they also covered the number in only 30% of those games. Now, the Runnin' Utes, on the other side of things, they got the W in their last 2 straight. They're also 4-1 against the spread in their last 5. Now, defensively, Utah's been real tough to score on at the Huntsman Center. They're giving up only 64 points a game at home. They're also limiting their competition to just 39% shooting from the field there. Now, scoring-wise, Brandon Carlson's averaging 13.5 points per contest, along with 6 rebounds. Meanwhile, both Gotch is averaging nearly double-digit points a game himself. Now, when it comes to the injury report, this is actually really important here, guys. You do have to keep an eye on Brandon Carlson. He's actually been battling an ankle injury. So if he can't give it a go tomorrow, the Utes could be in trouble. So keep an eye on Carlson's status. If he's in the game, I think the Utes got a real good shot at covering that number, but you got to keep an eye on his status. Got to have him in the game. Anyway, total-wise, 5 out of Utah's last 8 got over the line. Meanwhile, Arizona saw overs recently with Oregon, Washington, and Arizona State. I'm going to lean toward Utah +11.5 in the over 150. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our next and final matchup of the show. It is going to be USC versus Oregon State. And that's going to be an 11 o'clock Eastern start time. The USC Trojans are -11 with the total at 139. Now, the Trojans got the W in their last 4 straight, and they're also 10-2 straight up in their contests away from home. Isaiah Mobley's averaging over 14 points a game, and he's also grabbing 8 rebounds per contest. Meanwhile, Boogie Ellis is scoring over a dozen points a game himself, along with 3 rebounds and 2 assists. When it comes to defensive play in this one, the Trojans are one of the best road defensive teams in the country. They're allowing only 61 points per contest when traveling. And they're also in the top 5 in defensive field goal percentage away from home. They're taking on an Oregon State team who's been pretty bad this year on the offensive end of the court. These guys are scoring only 66 points a game. They're also amongst the worst in the country in offensive rebounding. And out of the Beavers' 13 home games this season, they got the W only 3 times. Now, when it comes to the injury report, a lot of guys on the injury list here for Oregon State. Altiche, Malone Key, Williams, and Johnson, they are questionable for the Beavs. When it comes to the total in this one, Oregon State saw 6 out of their last 10 contests against USC fall under the posted total. They averaged only 63 points a game during that stretch, by the way. Meanwhile, USC's 8-4 to the under in their last dozen away from home. I'm going to lean toward USC -11 in the under 139. With that, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on brockpage.com. If you guys do end up getting a membership here today on my website, just keep in mind, you're going to get billed the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. I always like to tell folks in every single video, the earlier in the month you sign up, the better. And guys, once again, if you want to get access to every single pick that I give out on that website, you're going to want to sign up for my board member tier package. But most importantly, guys, got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. Really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. With that said, guys, happy Wednesday or Thursday to you, depending on when you're watching this. Best of luck to you. I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at brockpage.com.